Ascension is your process. We are stating it in those terms because many of you have thought of that word as only being significant for specific individuals or a state that was only attainable by a few. But that is the thinking you want to change, which is why your planet has a restructuring now. At times in your civilization, massive changes occur to allow your planet to evolve. Every soul in physical form now contributes equally, and you will do so when you recognize and own the importance of your life journey and your very essence. We wanted you to love yourself, which is why we have offered guidance on certain days. And the one we would like you to view today was given 3 years ago. It will make more sense today. For ascending requires using your linear time and moving through your resistance of self-acceptance. You will discover that every effort you make each day in progressing through your fear and doubt will change your life and planet. You may be pushed to discover your greatness now. Yes, we mean you, and yes, we mean greatness. We wanted to use words that many of you reject, and that behavior holds back your evolution and that of the world. We also must mention it takes Roger a while to formulate the words. As usual, he is conflicted by his inclination and inherent desire to be helpful and his ongoing embarrassment and discovering what he believes he should have known. We throw that long sentence in to set you up for what you ultimately find about yourself. And it is only a matter of time before you allow that to happen. You may find it now as referred to the conditions of your world, which affect you personally. Whenever you operate in a state of fear or worry, you will do something to alleviate that feeling, and whatever you do causes your evolution. That is why you find unexpected courage to do things you've put off for years. When you finally do whatever your vision is, you facilitate your evolution and now that of the world. And now we're ready to begin, and we're so pleased you're here. And we're going to say this to you right off the bat. We have given you everything you need to know to live a really great life and also to manifest the wonderful world that you want to see. And we can say that because we know we have done it. And the only reason that you don't have that great life and you're not living it to the fullest is because you don't believe us or yourself, or you don't want to. Now, we're just saying that because that is the truth of the matter, because you each come into the world with something to offer that would cause your lives to become magnificent, and you each contribute to the evolution of your world because you're all humans, and that's why you come onto the physical plane. You just don't understand the progress that you make along the way, and we have laid it all out. Now, what we've done, and because we're going to answer all of your questions that have come in, and they've been wonderful because we've answered them all beforehand. You know, that may seem a little confusing to you, but you will understand how your human consciousness works. We speak from a different realm, so we can see where you are and we know where you would be in your world, and then we give you information. As you've noticed, we have done it on very specific days. Today is a new moon. Now, you can't figure out how we would have known in 2023 where you would be today, but we do, and you're feeling it right now because you haven't taken the next step in your life, and then that's why your world looks the way that it does. We've said all of this before, and you will hear it very soon too, because if you go back to the last full moon session that we gave, we said exactly the same thing, but many of you didn't believe us and didn't move, including our messenger. So we don't want you to have any regret, because as we said, the timing is always correct. You just have to become aligned with it. Now, we're going to prove to you how we have given you everything, because this week we laid out several messages. If you go back to our website, anyadvicefortoday.com, you'll read them all. And we've shown you how we've given you things over dates, over years, on the same day, because you don't accept your understanding of who you are all at once. Now, we mean individually and also collectively. That is your world. You each contribute to the collective consciousness of your world, but right now you're moving through the collective unconscious of your world, which is why we have given you all of our work so that you could awaken to your greatness, because it is within you. It's within every soul. Now, the only difference that happens is that you have different paths that you're taking, but they all produce something, and what they produce is energy. And the energy of light and love produces the life that you want to have. But to get there, you have to move through all your barriers. And that's all your restrictions, all your doubts, all your fears. And we've given you all of that. And we did it in a way so that you would understand. Now, if you go back even to yesterday, we gave you something on July 4th, because that was an important movement in your world. And we used the United States. We've used them for years, but you didn't understand why we were doing that. It's because in this particular time in your world, which we've called a restructuring, they are the focal point. And this is why you're seeing all the disruption there, all the things that are coming up that you never thought would happen. You've heard the word unprecedented more times than you can possibly imagine. And then even today with your weather, we said that several years ago. And if you go back and listen to any of our recordings, you will hear that we've given you all this information to tell you where you would be now. So then your only question is, am I going to move? Am I going to move to the next higher version of who I'm meant to become? Because you each have it. And we want you to get rid of the distinctions. That's why we gave you all of our messages, because you keep telling yourself that you're not enough and that you couldn't do some monumental thing. Well, you weren't supposed to. You were just supposed to become yourself. And that's the most valuable thing that you could possibly do in your life. And it's the most valuable gift that you could give to your world. This is why we've given you everything, and we've brought it together today to show you that you have it all. And it's just going to be a matter of you moving through the steps of actualizing who you are. And so we're going to answer all of that in the questions that you have sent. And we're going to begin with that, because what we have felt is that when we answer some of them, you will go back to all of the messages that we have already laid out for you in certain days in the past couple of weeks. If you just do that, you will see that everything you're going to present to us, we've already answered, but we're saying this because we don't want you to judge yourself. You have this thing, all humans have this thing that we call cognitive dissonance. We love that term so much because now you're studying your brains a lot more, and you can understand that that's how you operate in your lives. You develop your consciousness is through the use of your human brain, but we're trying to connect you to your mind, which is greater than all of that. And so you will see that over time, you'll accept a little bit more. And that is how you progress in your lives and end up living the evolutionary path that you were given that was going to be valuable if you keep moving through everything that you thought you couldn't do. That's really the only difficulty. And we can say this boldly because our messenger couldn't believe us either. So we had him do several things, and we posted this so you could see it. We say to you all the time, we will send him so much information before we're going to do an event like this because we want to prepare you all. That's what's been happening in your lives. You've been prepared. You've been being prepared to be on the earth at this time to bring in something wonderful. And we know that. You just may not believe that. But it takes time for that, which we've given you another message telling you that don't judge yourself, because you will get there if you keep moving. That's the only difficulty any of you have, is that you give up and you stop. Our being decided not to stop this time. We've given you a message about that because he's known. We said he has this ancient memory, so he knew what was going to be happening in your world, but he wanted to prove it to himself. And so we've proved it through him. And we've proved it through so many others, because the thing that you all want is to have this confidence and courage to do what you want. Well, he's had it now because of all the work we've given him. You wanted to heal. You wanted to heal your mind, body, things that you know are out of place. Well, we've given you that. That's why he's healed. And that's why at this age, at 73, we keep mentioning that, because we want to get the chronological age out of your mind, because you're never done with this process. You're eternal spiritual beings, so you're always evolving to wherever you choose to go. But we said this because we wanted to show you an example of someone who's healed all the stuff that you thought were impossible. And we've said it over and over again. We're going to do it again because we gave you an example of Roger Bannister. And if you don't remember, that was the British runner who ran the sub 4-minute mile, the first person to do it, because none of you thought you could do it, you see. And then you had somebody who could demonstrated it. Now everybody thinks, oh, we can do it. That's how you evolve in your individual consciousness, and that's how you evolve in collective consciousness as well. And so we have given you another Roger who has done the same thing. The only difficulty would be you might not believe it. Took a while for us to get him to believe it until the physical results started to show up. Because we said that we've given you everything you would never need to do anything else except this work, because it's just a matter of you going into who you are. We never tell you what to do. We just ask you who you are. We just ask you to uncover what it is in there, because you have this path. We've just given you a blueprint to uncover that. That's why we called our work an ascension guide, which is what you all do. You don't live in physical bodies forever. And so we thought maybe you would want to have a great time while you're here now. Because see, the other thing that happens when you decided that you're going to you decide to love yourself and do the thing that you came to do, you become happy. You heal everything. And then you start creating the different world, because the energy, everything is energy. And so if you're not being happy, you're not helping the world become what it could be. You're still deciding that you're going to stay in the same place, stuck and beating yourself up in judgment and all of that. And the only difficulty any of you have is judgment in all forms, coming from, and this is generational again, which is why we said it's a restructuring. Everything needed to be different, including your wealth and income disparity, all of that thing. All of that is being changed now. And that's the information we gave you. So if you guys decide that you're going to own yourself, wow, well, you have the great lives and you'll do your job, which is changing your world. And that's why you were born. And we're saying it's everyone. You just decide how you're going to do that. And as we said often, the world that you want to see is not guaranteed, because it depends on what each of you do, not just one person. This is why we gave you that message, because you held on to this belief that there were other people who have much more power or ability than you. And that's been passed down over generations. And we said we wanted to change that, because you all have the ability to create something magnificent. And if you start owning that, you'll see a very different life that you will live, and you'll also see a very different world. There's not, as we said often, there's no hierarchy of souls. We said that from the very beginning, but it was hard for you to understand that, because you've been convinced that you are not that person. So many of you, and that's been the difficulty. And so when we said cognitive dissonance, it was because we will present something to you, and this is why we keep going back and saying we've said it over and over and over again, but then you finally hear it, because it breaks through the barrier that you've had in your thinking that has not allowed you to own and access your greatness. That's what we told you then, and that's what we told you also in 2008. We put a message on our site today from 2008 on this date, where we said you've never done anything wrong. Because see, that's the other thing you guys do. You think that your life is such a mess because you've done all these horrible, bad, horrible things in your life, and this is why it's happening. You made all these mistakes. No, you were learning, you were understanding, you were gaining wisdom and information so that you could utilize it now. And if you start to change your mind, you will do that. This is why we've given you an example, a demonstration through our being who's gone through every horrible, difficult thing that any of you could possibly imagine, and now he's happy. He hasn't manifested all the other stuff, but all the junk that you guys are moving through, he's done that, and it's through this work. And the only thing we couldn't get him to do, as it said in that message, is to stop trying to be so helpful to everyone and not himself. That's the one that many of you have going on, and that's you're going to discover that is your main problem now, because that has to be shifted. And he's shifting it now, which we have told him he has to do now. So he's being forced for that, because many of you hide out from yourselves. That's all that happens. He did the same thing. But now the minute he started to say, well, wait a minute, maybe I'll start to loosen up, then he got pulled into different places. Because he's not going to be able to maintain the kind of thing that he's been doing for years. And we're saying this because many of you have done that, where he's hiding from himself. Because in just a couple of months, he's going to be exposed. And we said the same thing in here. He's going to be exposed to thousands of people, where we said that we've given you everything you need to live this great life and create a great world, manifest this wonderful world. And the only difficulty will be you won't believe us. And we want you to hear that again, because that is the only problem, because there is no reason for you not to have everything that you want if you were willing to discover who you are. And that's the problem. You don't want to look inside. We've seen it so much, because we see people in our work, they'll start doing it and they get so far and they say, well, wait a minute, this is too difficult. I don't want to look at that. And then they run. And then you end up in the same place that you were 5 years ago or 10 years ago or centuries ago, as in your planet. That's what we're saying. So this is why it's all changing now. And we're going to, okay, we have one more thing to tell you. We want you to really study what we said with the United States, because we don't want you to become afraid. It's a movement that's happening. It's an energetic change. It's going to look a little chaotic. It's going to look a little disruptive. But if you decide to bring in love of yourself, can't you see how that's going to change? Doesn't matter what they're going to move through in their political parties. None of that matters because the only thing that ever matters is energy. We said to you before that the only thing that remains is light and love. And so if you're putting in light and love into yourself, well, then you're going to be great. But if you're going to decide that you're going to go out and continue to hate yourself and others, you might have a little difficult time. That's what will happen. So now we're going to go into the questions, and we'll have Yarna start with the ones that have submitted. And then those of you who are here, we know that you're probably going to have others, and please get ready and put them in the question and answer for something or a follow-up to what we might answer now. But we will begin with those.
Yeah, questions. And first one is, how does one stop feeling like people do not like him or her?
You start liking yourself. That's a perfect scenario. We love that so much. And thank you for giving it to us, because there's no reason that people shouldn't like you, but they're just reflecting what you are presenting. That's all. And so when you start to go in earnestly and deciding, I'm going to every day start to love myself a little more. And this is the problem. Many of you ask this, well, how do I come to love myself? Well, the first thing, and we give you processes for this all the time, but we start noticing where you're judging yourself and where you're still caring. And the judging may not be your fault. You've probably learned it. You picked it up from somewhere. You were taught it. You got it from either this life very early on or some other life that you brought in. But there's always a solution, and that solution is within you. And all you have to do is be gentle, be forgiving. And that is why we gave you that message from 2020. If you look at, remember the end of it, you'll see where we said practice forgiveness. Because the forgiveness that we want you to practice is not recognizing how valuable you were, and not recognizing how lovable you are. And as minute you start embodying that, you will see others start doing the same thing, because they can only reflect back to you what you're projecting. That's all. The law of attraction will say that to you. And there's so many laws we've given you. We've given you so many things about this, but we want you to understand in this time. But the other thing we want to say, please do not judge yourself for being where you are. That's for all of you, because you will see that you're in this stuck place, and then you start beating yourselves up, and then that keeps you in the same place. We just want you to do something else, and that's be proactive, taking a step each day and deciding, I'm going to give myself some love, whatever that feels like for you. That's what you're going to do, regardless of what anyone else may think. It's for you to take that time to say, every day, I'm going to start loving myself. Then what's going to happen, you're going to start changing your brain. This is why we use neuroscience in our work. And we had our messenger just say yesterday that our work is, it's the science of fulfillment, because we've used science. You have to, as things develop over your centuries, over your civilization, you develop things through science. And so when you understand that changing the brain, that's how you operate and experience everything. If you do it every day, you start creating different neurotransmitters, let's say, that cause you to operate and think differently about yourself, because that's the most important thing you can do. Thank you. What's the next one?
Thank you. I'm going to a spiritual retreat from August 9 to 11. What will it be like? Will it be transformational, or will it be just another program that I see little to no change? I feel extremely challenged to go to this retreat in order to open up my metaphysical gifts.
And that's a problem you all have, because you know you're supposed to go. You just have fear. And we love that. And so, yes, it's going to be the greatest thing for you, because going there, you're going to understand so much more, because it's the same information that we give you. You'll find the connection there. And we had our messenger start listening to Dolores Cannon, all that information. He had never done that before. And as he listened, he says, oh, now I understand the archetypes. Now I understand why I have this information. Now I understand my role in this whole thing. So you have the same thing. And that's why you're being called there. But you have the fear or the trepidation, because it's causing you to step outside of your comfort zone. But that's going to be the best thing for you. The only difficulty any of you have is not being willing to step outside of this barrier that you've created around yourself that told you you weren't enough. And so Your higher self is pushing you. That's why you said, we love that. You said you're feeling you're being called. Yes, your higher self is speaking to you and saying, just do this because you're going to open up to so much more. Because the thing that's going to happen when you get there, you're going to see all these other people just like you. And so now you're going to have more confirmation, you see. Now you're going to have more validation and they'll see it in you. So yeah, we know exactly what's going to happen. This is why we had our messenger write something saying yesterday, he put it, you'll see it on his social media. He said, I needed validation as well. And this is what we did. We had him go into using your technology into Chat GPT and say, wait a minute, I've done all these things. Do I sit in the same place as these other people? And the first name that came up was Carl Jung. That's what came back. And we have mentioned that before because there is a continuation. There's always a continuation of consciousness and information. And you are a part of that. So yes, we just love that you're doing this because you will open up to this whole new way of being and acceptance, because that's the only difficulty any of you have. You get guided to something, but then the self-acceptance that you're the one gets in the way. But this is going to help all of that. Thank you so much.
Awesome, thank you. So, dear Wilhelm, for as long as I can remember, I've constantly heard a very high frequency, 16 kHz tone. I don't know if it's 16 hertz or kHz. I don't know about that. Okay, I constantly have heard a very high frequency, 16 kHz tone, like the old TVs. It's not bothersome, but I do wonder if it has any meaning beyond the physical implications. Do you have any informations on this?
Yeah, yes, we have a lot. You're awakening to the next part of who you are. You're awakening to another dimension. This is why we put that in the message that we just read for you about dimensions, because you exist in different ones. And so when you think of your physical world and you move to a higher state of understanding or dimension within yourself, you can have different physical symptoms, which we've called, and many of others called, ascension symptoms. And one of them is ringing in the ear. And so you can, when our messenger had it the first time, he thought, oh no, I'm going deaf. And so he went to a doctor, have it checked out, and said, well, couldn't find anything. And then he got used to it. And you said exactly the right thing. It's not that bothersome. So you know on this deep level that it's awakening you to something, but you're not completely trusting it yet. And that's okay, because eventually it'll be there and you only have to focus to be able to hear it, because your bodies will move into different dimensions as you're shifting. And we said you're moving to the light. And so that becomes shifting your physical bodies. And depending on your evolutionary path, you will have different symptoms, and you all won't have the same one, but that's a very common one. So yes, and we will say this too, because you're so intuitive, because a part of you knew that this was nothing to be worried about, but you just wanted confirmation that you were awakening to the next part of you, and now we've given it to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, beautiful. Dear Wilhelm, I noticed yesterday that I am making mistakes at work, especially with numbers, after checking 3 times and sending emails. I look back and see the totals are wrong. I look back at last week's work and I see I did it almost every correspondence I looked up. I was filled with fear and confusion yesterday and very weepy. At 47 years old, why should I suddenly have this? My work is usually precise. I feel I cannot trust myself. Do you have any guidance for me?
Yes, we have so much, and we're so glad that you brought it up. Please don't judge yourself. And we love the weepiness, because the weepiness was just a recognition that was coming through, not a judgment of you. It's none of that. It's just it's this recognition. Your higher self was giving you, well, I can't keep doing the same thing in the same ways that I've been doing it, but I'm not willing to move. That's all. Don't judge yourself. Our being has gone through that many times, and we're going to probably write a book about all the times that he resisted himself and then ended up in disasters that he could have avoided if he could have accepted who he was. This is, again, why we give you everything that we do. But you are just coming upon something. And so it's the first thing. We want you not to judge yourself because you're feeling something's going horribly wrong, and it isn't. You're just being given signals. You're being clues. These are nudges that are saying move in a different direction. That's all. And so now you're going to take the time to figure out what that could be without without going into the judgment, you're just going to start asking new questions because even though you've been there, you've been doing this for a long time, your higher self has said there's more that you can do and it's within you and it's something that you probably wanted to do, but you put away for a long time and now you're being nudged to bring it back. Doesn't mean that you need to quit your job right now, but don't judge yourself. When our messenger was, he's been for 35 years, he's sitting down, he's writing our messages in longhand. And then we got to the point where he couldn't do it anymore. And he was making the mistakes that you're talking about. And he couldn't read. He couldn't see the messages that he was writing down. And so we said, will you please stop going? You've moved to a different level. Just start typing them. That's all. It was just a shift in what he could do. But his resistance was holding on to the old way of doing something. And so you're doing that in your life a bit, but don't, again, it's a process. So don't judge yourself. Just start asking new questions because there's something that you want to do or bring about that you're just really not allowing yourself to believe or honor right now. And that's what we are guiding you and want you to do. But again, nothing's going wrong because we felt this horrible thing. You're looking at yourself and why am I making all these mistakes? You're being guided. That's all. And just let it go. And then start to laugh at yourself. That's the other thing we want you to do. Because you may still make some more. And when you find it, laugh at yourself. Okay, there it is again. I'll figure out where I'm being moved to now. We're changing the attitude, which is what we want to do with all of you, because that's the new energy that we want you to bring into your lives and into the world. Thank you so much.
Awesome, great answer, bro. Dear Wilhelm, I am working to generate several financial opportunities and would like to see them come into fruition before September to provide me with more options and choices. I have been somewhat scattered, but I believe I am now more focused and I am closer to achieving my goals. Do you see any specific blocks or limiting beliefs that I still need to purge to achieve my current goals?
Yes, and you wrote it. It was in there by September. By September doesn't mean anything except you're putting a limitation on yourself. And it's a limitation that you've held on to for a long time by making these arbitrary dates of when something was supposed to happen. Now, we would like for you to shift that because we think it could happen much sooner. Because if you open up your thinking, there's something that could happen tomorrow. We gave you a message just the other day, about 12 seconds. Because, see, you can shift your thinking that quickly, and then you allow the universe to bring you more things quickly instead of putting an arbitrary time on it where it has to happen. But the other two things happen. When you put those kinds of rules on yourself, number one, if it doesn't happen by that specific date that you've made up, then you start to think everything's gone wrong, and now you just go back to where you were 15 years ago, let's say. Or you put an arbitrary date on it that the universe says, well, wait a minute, we want you to move now, but you're thinking that it has to happen at this time, maybe. And this is why, again, we wanted to show you how long it took our messenger before all of this was put together. It took him years. He struggled and didn't believe it. And now it's coming about because this is the right time. And so, but for you, yes, you're going to open up. And that's the only barrier is that there's several. You have a couple. One is that the thing that you're envisioning feels like massive or too big, that maybe you're not the one. And many of you have that. It feels like you're carrying something, especially at this time in your world, because you've each been given something that could feel a little bit big to you. So just embrace that, embrace what you're feeling about it. But again, open up to this or something better or more. That's all, instead of the arbitrary. But it will happen because you're on the path that's leading you to exactly what you're meant to bring into this world at this time. And it's going to be so helpful for your planet if you don't judge yourself, if you don't go back to thinking, well, it didn't happen before, I couldn't do it then. No, you're supposed to do it now. And we're so happy that you are. Thank you.
Good stuff. What does mastery and self-realization look like? How does a person who has become actualized move through the day? Is it a permanent state or does it waver? Are there key tenets to embody?
Oh, we love that so much. First of all, you never get there. Let's just say that. As long as you're in a physical body, you're going to keep actualizing. There are no limits to where you could go. It depends on your evolutionary path and what you chose this lifetime. But there's more you can do. So the way that an actualized person lives in their world, that they start to see things in a new way. And then they understand that it's a process because they're changing their thinking and it doesn't happen all at once. And they have to continually do it because you will be presented with something new. No matter, this is why we gave you that message in the beginning, the very first one, because you thought that it's only ascended masters who could do certain things. And then you're looking to them to see, well, what does that look like? It's going to look like what you do. Because you each come in to become ascended masters. That's why we gave you that first message. So, but if you're looking at, well, what does it feel like and all of that? No, you don't stay there. Our being has never stayed anywhere. He falls back so much. So we just want to say that. This is why we're moving him now, because there's a general time for all of you, which is why this new moon is so powerful, which is why we wanted to do it today, because we want you to unleash your greatness, all of you. And he's got to do the same thing. It's all of you. And so you are doing this because you're aware that there is this feeling of a master or self-actualization. It is something that you are developing. Now, we talked about this before, and we talked about Maslow because he developed that idea. And so you have certain things in your world that you don't understand all at once, and then certain beings come in to give you ways of doing that. We've given you a new way. And we've called it your life operating instructions. That's all that it is, because you're still operating from old beliefs. That's why that message there, the very first one, saying you thought it was that way, and that's the thinking you need to change now. But we will say this. You have such awareness because you couldn't have asked that question, because you're on the path and you know this. You just aren't there every day, every moment. And then that's when you go into judging yourself again. And we would love for you to let that one go and just appreciate what we have given you before as glimpses. You'll have glimpses of that place where you feel fully actualized and or a master, but it's continual. And so you must understand that it's something that you each will do. Not everyone will do this in this life, you know. And so the fact that you're doing it is we're so grateful, because that's going to make the biggest difference on your planet at this time. Thank you.
So moving to the Q&A here. Chat?
Sorry?
We are moving to the Q&A now in the chat.
Oh, perfect.
The first one here for our in right now. Hi, Wilhelm. Thank you so much. Recently, finally, I started to feel that it's time to do my healing work without any hesitation or doubt. I strongly feel that I want to work for Japan, then Hawaii, and then all over the world. If I don't do it, I'll face more obstacles that I feel. The healing has formed to a collaboration work to Japanese people with my friend in Japan. His wife is supporting this also, who is the founder of one of the method in Japan. We are thinking to start as a business pretty soon. Right now, my small income is still coming from the working for one of the Hawaii community NPO. It's becoming stressful and less joy, and some from music. So right now my fear is arising. Healing as a business hasn't started yet. May I ask your advice?
Our advice is to do it. So the fear is going to come up. This is why we keep telling you. That's why we wrote the book on fear, because that's always going to be there. When you move into this other state of who you're meant to become, the fear is going to be there. And so if you're worried about the money and all of that, well, yeah, our being went through that too. He's lost all of his, so it didn't matter, because he needed to know that what he was doing was the correct thing. So he was willing to take that risk. You're not at that place, however. You're just at this place of doubting where it's going to take you. And so if you take it meticulously, call it doing baby steps, you know, putting it together, but you're already doing that. You've already done the formation. It's your consciousness now that needs to embody it. And so a daily practice of accepting that you are going to receive the funds and that you're going to have whatever it is to bring this about, it will be supported, because you're bringing in something to the world that is needed at this time and this healing. So it will be supported, but it has to break through your doubts and fears of what you've lived and what your life journey and your evolutionary path has been. But we will say that we know that what you're doing is going to bring it in eventually. The shift in your world right now is, we said about the wealth and income, and we gave you something a while ago. We've said it a couple of times, but we want you to appreciate it now because many of you have felt this. We said you will finally come to understand what it meant. The meek shall inherit the earth. See, that's one of those things, you got from your Bible and other places. But this is the time where that is very valuable, because many of you have felt small, and so it's difficult for you to imagine abundance in massive ways because of that programming that has always existed. But this is the time that you are here to shift that. And so, but you have to do it first in your consciousness. So if it's about sitting down every day, meditating on something specific, allowing the money to come in, just allowing, not, you don't have to beg, you don't have to ask, you have all of that. But this is the time where you're meant to move to that next level. And yes, just keep loving yourself. And you said so much in there that tells us already that you know on a deep level how valuable this would be. But it's the old disbelief, which many of you have. That's why we keep using the imposter syndrome so often, because that's what happens as you move through your life. Whenever you take the next step into where you are meant to become, that you feel the trepidation or the little bit of fear, but just start doing something that gives you, we're going to talk about the science of this. You develop patterns in your thinking. This is why we talk about cognitive behavior training and all of that. And so you have to break the old habit, the old belief that was there, that the money was a problem and all of that. Now you're being pushed that because you're also starting to experience how the other thing you're doing, the other work, is not fulfilling and you're becoming irritated. Just be patient with that as you're working on, because that is giving you something at this moment. You have to endure it. Just change your thinking about it. But in the meantime, open your consciousness for receiving. That's all. You're on the right path, and we're excited to see what you're going to create. Thank you.
Thank you. Hallo, Wilhelm. Is the energy exchange in this channeling more important than the words?
Than the work?
Than the words. If the energy exchange in
yes.
this channeling session is more than the words that you speak.
Yes. Oh, thank you for that. Yes, because that's what we always want you to feel, is the energy. Sometimes our messenger gets a little upset with us because we bring it through so forcefully sometimes, and he says, please calm down. You'll see that in the message. He always wants us to apologize. There was one message we gave you just a while ago that he wanted us to apologize for the length of it, because many of you don't want to read that long. But we felt it was important because many of you are running around in your lives and you're not paying attention. And so the energy is the most important thing. And the energy of light and love causes you to feel good. If you could do nothing else but decide you're going to spend a full day just going around and doing things that would make you feel good, that would make the biggest difference in your life. And so, yes, the words, and this is the other thing too. Many of you will hear and listen to words all the time, and sometimes they don't really move you because you haven't taken the steps to really get inside of your consciousness to understand where those blockages are, which is why we have, we give you processes and things to do to continually do that, but it's on a consistent basis. You can't change your brain and your minds if you don't do it consistently. This is why recently we've taken to show you our messenger, how he had all this full cabinet of messages, because he sat down every single day to write this. He couldn't have created this unless he had done all of that. But you don't have to do that. That's how evolution works. We condense things to give to you so you don't have to struggle as much. And that's what he put his life in to do. But for you, you're on the right path, and we just want you to start embracing it and going a little bit further than where you ever have before. Thank you.
Thank you. What is the best way to take advantage of the energy that is pouring through to maximize my ascension?
Oh, thank you. You're going to find we want you to find the connection to the thing that's causing you to feel the energy that's causing you to feel good, because we know that happened. But we don't know if you're paying attention to the reason that it happened. And that's what we want you to recognize now. Because when you get in touch with the reason that you feel this energy that's surging, that's your higher self said, yes, we want you to do this thing there. And we know that you know what it is, because as we're saying it, it's probably coming into your mind. It is there because it's always been there. But now you're going to start to believe it a little bit more. And so that's what you're meant to do with the energy. That's a signal coming to you. And we'll tell you something else. When our messenger first started receiving us, he would sit for the longest time. We still talk about that quite a bit before he would start to write and let something come through. And so we would send him a signal, and it would be a shift in his energy. And it would be a physical movement in his body, and he would know it's us talking to him. Say, okay, would you just get on with it? This is what we're saying to you. You're just wonderful, and you're going to use this energy to figure out that thing that you're meant to do, and it's going to really uplift you, and you're going to make a great contribution to your world. Thank you.
So 2 more questions in the chat box. If someone else has one question, just type it in. I will follow a course in Akasha reading in August. Will I be able to do that for others in the future?
That's up to you. That's up to you. There are no limits. This is the thing we want you all to understand. There's no limits. It's just we even gave you one message about shoulds because we wanted you to get rid of all of that, because that's the thing that always keeps you stuck about what you should do. You're finding something that you're having an inkling of what you want to do. Now, you're going into this thinking that, okay, this is going to be for me. But you could not have asked that next part of the question unless your higher self was saying, maybe you're supposed to do this. Maybe you're going to be really good at this. So all we want you to do, we're not telling what you're going to do, but we want you to open your mind to that possibility, because that's how it feels to us. We think you're being guided there to begin this beginning of doing this so that you can open up to much more. So if you decide, if that feels to you, if you're doing what your incarnation is in this work, if you feel that you're going to do it for others, then please do that, because it's going to be so helpful. This is why we had our messenger post his Akashic Records reading, which he wasn't going to do before, but we would love all of you to see it, because then it verifies what he was afraid of, because it was told to him exactly what we had given him that he was doubting. And then he has this instant recognition, and that's when he breaks down into tears, which many of you will do, because it'll be a recognition of something that you always knew, but you couldn't admit or acknowledge. And so it will be helpful. And so when you do that for yourself, you'll give that to someone else, and it could be the most magnificent thing that person will experience in their life, but it'll come after you experience it in your life first. Thank you.
Great. I love this one. The last time we spoke, you told me to experiment with my gift of laying hands and healing. I'm not sure what active steps to take in order to expand on this. Can you give me guidance, or can you give guidance on this? Maybe a daily practice.
Well, it's a couple of things you can do. You can practice on yourself. That's what you can practice healing on yourself. You can feel the energy on yourself and start doing that. And then find some friends to practice on. Find someone close to you. Practice is always what is needed in any modality that you're developing. And you have to give yourself permission to work with others so that you can see, because you're not going to know it right away. It's something that develops as you start doing it, but you're going to need some sort of feeling. Now, you can go and get training. That would be the best thing. So practice with yourself to see if this is really something. We want you to ask the question to, first of all, would this feel good for me if I'm doing this for others? Get that, because we think that it is, but we think that you have doubt about it. So if you got some other experience and working with those who are already doing it, so that you start to form your belief, and then you'll see that it'll start to develop. And we always use this story because many of you do this. In our messenger, he had to work with his coach just 36 years ago. And he was afraid of beginning something. And his coach said, well, listen, I got all my stuff from someone else, and I just developed it and used it. And so you'll do the same thing. I'm giving you something, you'll use it, and you'll become better than me one day. And that's the line that he keeps using, because, see, that's what you're meant to do. When you come into physical incarnation, you're supposed to become better than whatever existed before. All of you in your own individual ways. And we gave you a message last week about that one as well. And if you read the string of all the messages that we have given you on the 3rd and the 4th, you will see that it was in alignment. Then we're going to tell you something else, because we would love all of you to do this, because we want you to understand that you're connected to the universe. You each are, but you come in to actualize in different ways. We had our being record his first message, and it's on the site. And this was in February 19th of 1989. And so we had him posted again this year, so you can find it there. But what we did also on that date is that we put a string of messages from every February 19th for years. And then if you look at your history, you will see major events that happened in your world on that date. And how you wonder, well, how could that have happened? There's an alignment in the universe, and it's all energy. And some people tap into it, are being tapped into it. He didn't know he was doing that. He was just taking direction from us, and he just wrote it all down. That's all. And then the results showed up in his life, and now he can give it to everyone else. That's what you each will do. And so don't worry that you don't have it all yet. You will develop it, and we've just given you the guidance, and you each will use that guidance, and you will use it and develop something, and then you'll give it to others, because that's how this works. You are not in physical bodies forever, so it's best that you take advantage of what you have now. And as we said, we've given you everything to live this magnificent life, and you just have to keep going. That's all.
Thank you. So we have one more question. And before this, to the hands-on healing. Inya, if you want, you can ask me a question as well, or reach out to me here in the chat, and then I will give you some information about that. I'm doing it for 2.5 years now, and might be great to have a conversation about that. So the last question. I have been writing messages in notebooks for years in very disorganized ways. When I go back and try to decipher them, some of them sound very profound. Are these messages valuable?
Yes.
And would putting them out be valuable for others?
Yes. Yes. Because you connected to something. You connected to universal consciousness. That's why you can't recognize them. Our being is still in shock, because he'll go back and he'll read messages that we gave him 30 years ago. He goes, where'd that come from? Why didn't I understand it then? That seems very different. And then what he did is he didn't put it out there. We just had him do this a couple of days ago. Go back and find an old message from that none of you would have seen, because he didn't think, well, is this going to be valuable? And then it finds out it's the most valuable. You are doing that right now. And we're so happy that you're doing it. And so, yes, you know, and you said something else, and we want you to trust yourself, because that's what's going on as well. Because when you read what you wrote, you knew that it didn't come from you. You knew that it came from a different source, and that's why it felt different. And so if you acknowledge that and then share it with others to give them permission to access this higher state of consciousness, which is just all we wanted for all of you. So yes, thank you. That's going to be brilliant.
And the last one. Does it feel good, the next step after an idea?
Sorry?
Does it feel good, like the feeling of does it feel good, right? The next step after any idea?
Okay, we're not clear of what that.
So if you have an idea of something, like an inspirational idea, and then you kind of look if does it feel good, right? If this is the next step after you had an idea.
Well, yes. Okay, yes. But there are two things. Okay, this is why perfect. We're glad you did that one. Because this is what will happen. Yes, it'll feel good to you right when you have it. And then what happens is that you'll start to talk yourself out of it right afterwards. That's the conflict that you all have. Because you live in contradictions, because you were told that you could create and do anything, but then you'll have the great idea, and you'll think, oh, wait a minute, that felt really good for that moment, but it's not me. And so we've used this before, and we love this. So we talked about the author, the story of Mel Robbins. Many of you heard of her. She wrote this book, The 5-Second Rule. We've used it before, because she became quite aware that if she didn't act on something right away, that she would probably talk herself out of it. And the reason that you do that is because the thing that you're feeling good about, that idea, is something you haven't done yet. So it's moving you into that place of the unknown, which many of you come to fear. And so just embrace it now and just say, yes, I'm going to do it. So we're so glad you brought that up, because those are the pitfalls that you all move into, because you'll have the great idea, you know it feels good, but then the next moment you're saying, no, it's not me. So just do something in that moment and act on it. Write it down. Start to put belief behind it. Whether or not you believe it doesn't matter. Just start to we're not saying act as if, but just start to act as if you know it's going to come about. Put it into some affirmative way and start moving with it. And then you'll nurture it. It'll start to grow. Just like you grow anything else in the physical plane, you have to give it time. You have to give it care, nurturing, water, sustenance, whatever it is to cause it to grow, and then it'll happen. But yes, so we feel this too, that you have this idea that felt great, and there's a part of you that hasn't fully embraced it yet, but that's okay because you're on the path and you will do it, especially now with what we've told you. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. So one more came in. I had a dream about my project in the Middle East and saw the person who pushed me out of the region received an award for my work. But I showed up and accepted in their place. I have not created my trademarks, so I have not relaunched. Can you explain, or can you explain, yeah, the message in the dream to me?
Yes, yes. It's so brilliant. It's so perfect. It's saying if you don't step up and grab this, somebody else is going to get your award because it's been given to you. Your higher self is so lovely and gave you such great guidance and all of that. And so it's just saying, please embrace what you have because the other people will step up there and grab what you are meant to bring into this world. Many of you will have that. And again, this is why we went through what we did yesterday with our messenger, and everything is aligned. You can probably find the post on social media somewhere because we had him say, I needed, no, he said, we all need confirmation or validation, whatever word we all need validation. And that's what you received in that dream, you see, because your higher self is saying if you start to embrace and embody who you are, you will be the one accepting the award. Each of you comes into the world at a time to bring in something new, but sometimes that's really challenging. And this is why it's been so hard for our being. You'll see that we put in there also, why is it that he said, I'm 73. How is it that I'm only coming to understand it and accept this now? So we had him use his chat GPT again to find all the examples of those who waited till later in their lives to create something to bring to the world that made a huge difference. And that's because they could only do it after they had proven their work. And that's what he's done all of these years, proven this work. And this is why he can say to you, we have given you everything that you need. And so you have something within you that is waiting your acceptance. And that dream was so prolific, and we're so glad that you have it, and now you'll start to believe it. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the last question.
Perfect. We have one other thing to give you because we want you to know that you're always been provided. We've said this many times. And if you go back and look at our last messages, and years ago, we said you have never been alone. That was one of the channeling sessions that we had, but it takes a while for you to accept it. But now what we're doing is we're going into reverse because we want you to see what we've done. We gave you a message last year tomorrow. We're saying it that way because we gave it to you on July the 6th. And it talks about you are having a spiritual evolution, all of you, and your planet. This is why we gave you all the work. It's not about anything else, and that's why we talk about spiritual in a different way. It doesn't mean anything religious. It means that you understand that you exist for a reason, and that all souls do. And so the work that we came in to bring you was for that reason. And so what we would like Yarna to do as we end this is to have him read that. We'll bring it up on the screen so he can read it because we want you to understand you've never been lost and we have given you everything. And now we will prove it to you with this. But we want to say that we love you so much and we're so glad that you're here. And we know that others who will hear this later, whenever that might be, they will decide if they're going to join us because now what we've done is we've made this work accessible to absolutely anyone. Anyone can do it. We are being struggled with this. We talked about this forever. He didn't want to know. He didn't know what kind of price should I charge. Well, now it's anybody can afford it. So you just have to decide that you want to reach that next level. And as we said, we've given you everything. And so now to prove it, we'll have you hear this next message.
Yes. Here we go. I feared yesterday, Ascension, is spiritual and evolution is spiritual. Very great or interesting sentence. I think why? Because spiraling, right? We're spiraling up. Mhm. So I can open the message as well if that helps. Mhm. All right. So July 6th, 2023. You're having a spiritual evolution. We are using our words deliberately. And when you visit the definition of the word spiritual, it has little to do with religion, but with the sound of every human born. When we say evolution, it is the understanding that every person contributes to the formation of your world, and you do so over generations. You decided to live now to manifest the life and world you want, and that can only occur when you understand and accept your importance and that of your life journey and love every aspect of it and you. We called this time your restructuring, and we have guided you every step of the way. And we did so on this day 3 years ago. But you all evolve in the same manner, and that is gradual. You would not expect yourself to embrace what we gave you then entirely, but you can accept it today, and we advise you to do so. For not only will your life change, but also your planet. July 6, 2020. You will do it when the time is right. We are so proud of Roger because, after recognizing moments of doubt, he decided to deliver some complicated information. The other day, we made a statement that we are not Roger. That was meant to point out to each of you that you exist in many different dimensions, and this physical one you call life is only one of them. We exist beyond what you know, so we can access information that Roger may not. But most times, as with you, he chooses not to do so. Roger usually makes the choice because he thinks he is not up to accomplishing whatever that might be. But other times, the timing is not right. That is the line we wanted to give to each of you. You have lived lives where you continually think you are not living up to your potential or fulfilling some need, but you might have forgotten you are part of a bigger picture. The thing you were meant to do may not have opened its opportunity to you because your specific individual part is only being called forth now. We are not Roger because he had heard us for years, just as you have listened to your guidance. But now he is accepting what we have told him, and you will recognize your direction at the perfect time. You will get it done. Wilhelm. Awesome. So, thank you, sir, Roger Burnley. Very, very great session. Lots of love. Exactly. Sending those hearts. I go for it as well. So, yeah, thank you for being here, right? We're looking forward to seeing you next time. Have amazing questions. Go and take advantage from the information that you got now, right? Take action, be proactive, and also be proactive resting at times to let the information sink in, and don't rush to put the next information into your brain when you're still kind of working out the first one, right? So thank you for being here. Jan and Roger out. See you next time.